Welcome back to the podcast. I'm Lara, and today I'm here with the one and only Mr. Ed Killebrew. Thanks for joining me.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. When I think about, the fun, exciting podcast, often we're sharing great information or we're talking, we've talked about some very serious topics. But I always enjoy when I get a big personality behind whatever subject I have. So I
Did you say
know
a big person or a big personality?
whatever I needed to say to make you happy.
I was thinking big person.
Personality. I almost said something else instead. So you have been serving our community for a long time. I love that you're repping your company here. He mentioned as he came up that he did not dress up, if you will. But I told him that today when I was deciding what to wear, I was going with the Servpro colors, the green and the black. Gotta pay homage to the business
Well, we
here.
appreciate that. Thank
Absolutely.
you very
And we
much.
match, so we look really good while we're doing this.
Okay. All right.
If you watched any of my podcast, one of the things I love to ask is how you end up in Putnam County, because there's always two stories, generally speaking, that I get. One about growing up here, and then I get some great stories about some of your memories as growing up in Putnam County, or two that you've transplanted here, and then you tell me why you fell in love with Putnam County. And then I do get I don't really know how we ended up here, but I'm glad we did. Ghost stories. Those are always fun.
Well, I ended up here by birth.
That'll do it.
I'm a member of the pioneer family of the Salinas. They came here from Minorca as indentured servants to the DuPonts in Ormond Beach. They came north to St. Augustine because, and for those of you that don't know, Minorca is a little island off the coast of Spain. So it is a Spanish heritage. It's where the datil pepper came from. There's nothing else can grow on that island but datil peppers. I mean, it's just a big rock.
You're the second Minorcan I've talked to this week. That's that's wild because I had not heard that word.
Really?
In fact, actually, I know that this is squirrels, but so
butterfly.
Exactly. Monday, I was talking with, speaking of the datil pepper, the ladies that were sharing the message of the datil pepper, and Shelly Bingham is Minorcan. And then I had a phone call the next day with a gal who we were kind of plotting around on the podcast and doing some projects together. And then she brought up Minorcan. I was like, I actually, and except for the last time I ordered like chowder somewhere, had not thought about or heard the word Minorcan. And now 3 times in a week.
We're very implanted in the Putnam County community.
Well, you guys are implanted in my head this week, because three times in a week to hear that word.
They came to Ormond Beach as indentured servants to the DuPonts. There were 5 families: the Salinas, the Usinas, the Palisiers. I think the O'Haras were part of it, and Masters. And they all came over, like I'm telling you. And this is a story I've always got. If you got something different to say out there, let me know, okay?
He said you could challenge him.
Yeah, absolutely. And for those that you know me, you know I'm very challenged anyhow.
And we have some history buffs who do watch this podcast who are very, very good about heritage. And Miss Mary Reese is one of those where she can go back and tell you about your great whatever grandpappy.
Right.
So
well, I used to sit. Anyhow, they came over as indentured servants. They would not let them loose from their indenturement. So they had, this is my grandmothers and great aunts and uncles telling me this story. They had a bloody uprising in Ormond Beach, and they moved, once they got released from that, they moved to St. Augustine, where my great whatever grandfather, the Salina, moved westward into Putnam County. My understanding was that he got a 14,000 acre land grant over in San Mateo, which is the East End Road area.
okay.
And that he came over here with 9 children. And I was going to tell you, my grandmother she had a book, a spreadsheet book with all the people in it. And from the time I was 7 or 8 years old, I would lay on the living room floor and go through that. And my grandmother used to tell me, you don't want to go through there, you're going to find a horse thief somewhere. And so I'm kind of like, okay, well, I never did understand that till I was 60. How old are you today? I'm 63 years old, because I just heard this about a month ago, I guess, maybe a month and a half ago, because I was always told that he came over with the 9 children, divorced his wife, and had like 14 more. Okay, but when in actuality, what had happened is he came over here with his 9 children and his wife, and he got a mistress, and she had the other children, and he allowed them to carry his name, and then so I was part of those 14. So that's what my grandmother was talking about when she said you're gonna find
A horse thief.
yeah, a horse thief, and I
Oh,
never understood it till then. I mean, she was
right,
and of course she wasn't proud of it, but that's just what had happened.
right.
So anyhow, they went to St. Augustine. He moved over here. My great grandmother met Charles Sykes from Shell Bluff in Flagler County.
Okay.
He came up here, got her. They moved back to Shell Bluff, lived there for a while, and he was a commercial fisherman. And so back in the day when they rode and sailed fishing and did nets like that, he was on Crescent Lake. So they went to the south end of the lake. They got 75 acres of land right on the lake. And that's where my grandmother grew up, was on the south end of Crescent Lake.
Okay.
My grandfather, my mama's daddy, her husband, he was actually from Pensacola, but he moved over here as a child, and he grew up in Crescent City. And he also found her down there, and they got married. She was 14 or 15 years old when they got married.
Wow.
And they had 4 children. Warren Sherwood, Emily Reitmeyer now, my mother, Annette Peters, and my Uncle Tommy Sherwood. And so they moved up here. They lived up on 8th Street behind where the Texaco station that's kind of getting messed up now. It's being rebuilt. There was a big apartment building behind it. It was like I want to say 4 apartments, maybe 8 apartments.
Oh,
but it was an apartment house. It was built that way. That's since been tore down from there. But that's where they moved up here. And Granddaddy worked at Florida Furniture. He worked at Camp Blanding. He worked several different, wound up at the paper mill. He helped build the paper mill.
Oh, that's incredible.
And then he went to work for him for 27 years. So
he had a lot of jobs and then did that. That's impressive.
Right. So, I mean, I don't know where you want me to go from there because,
no.
That's how I ended up in Putnam County.
Yeah, no, I love that story. And I'm still like the fact that the Menorcan thing just still makes me very interested how many other people have that kind of heritage in Putnam County. Right. If you're Menorcan, drop a comment below so I can do some data here. So you grew up, are you saying on 8th in the apartments?
No.
That's where
that was tore down way before because my grandparents built a house at 1412 Laurel Street, which at the time in 1950 something, I think it was outside of town. Okay. I mean, that was a ways out, they said. That's you go up out of the railroad track, you go up 14th Street would be the next one you go to. You turn left, you go 2 blocks down, you turn right on Laurel, and she's in the middle of the street. But she was way out of town. I can remember, and I'm going to run a bunch of rabbits here.
No,
but
I love rabbits.
I can remember when I was a kid, and we'd go out St. John's Avenue. You had the sand pits out there, which is now what the old Walmart and all that on one side. On the other side, there was sand pits or trees and what have you. But there was a Volkswagen dealership out there where right beside Discount Auto Parts, there's that big white building. Yeah. That was the Volkswagen dealership. Oh. There was nothing else out there but the Volkswagen dealership. And where Bramlett's is now, that service station looking building, that was the Gulf station. And the railroad track ran right up in between them, right by the sand pits and everything like that. And I can remember, I mean, I was 16, 17 years old, just learning how to drive. I had a truck, so we all went out in the sand pits and what have you. But I can remember coming home from there one night. My grandmother asked me where I've been, and I said, well, I've been out that blah, blah, blah. She said, what were you doing that far out of town?
That's so funny to think. That's so funny to think about. Well, first of all, like I can't even envision it being desolate out there, it being undeveloped. Obviously, you understand looking back at pre-electricity, pre-cars,
Mm,
you understand that being desolate. But I grew up in Satsuma, San Mateo area,
right,
and it was a trip to town.
right.
That's far.
Well, my
From
grandparents lived in Crescent City. My grandfather told me he was 97, 96, something like that when he passed.
uh-huh.
He told me, and this just amazes me today because the things that we see nowadays, you know, people living in space and all that,
Mm-hmm.
my grandfather can remember he he brought a horse to Palaca. If he had to come to Palaca, he would bring a horse. He'd borrow a horse and come to Palaca, and you'd have to. I mean, it'd take him all day to get here, and then you have to spend the night and do whatever business he had and go back. Well, then
Wow.
the wagon, they did the wagon, did the same thing. Come to town, did your business and everything like that. And I mean, they had grocery stores and everything down there, but he had to come to the county seat every now and then.
Right.
So he remembered doing all that. Well, then the boats, the steamboats,
Right.
started going back and forth. And so, you weren't, I mean, it was a little trip and everything like that. Well, then the railroad came through.
Uh-huh.
So you could come up in the morning, do your business, get back on the train and go back in the afternoon.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
So
Revolutionary for
yeah,
him.
I mean, really, he's seen
Yeah.
all that. Then he saw airplanes in the sky for the first time. Then they got a
Yeah.
vehicle, they got a car, and then I started thinking about he saw the first man on the moon. I can remember sitting in their TV room with them when that happened. One small step for mankind.
Right.
I can remember sitting in the TV room when that happened, and so
Can you
yeah,
imagine?
well, that's what I'm saying. He saw all that, and we just take for granted what we're doing now. I mean, this little tiny
right.
camera, everything we're doing, we just take this for granted.
Oh, absolutely.
But yeah, I mean that's my grandfather told me tales about Putnam County. Some I can't tell on the camera.
I've heard that once or twice before.
But I mean, he like moonshining.
Right.
Moonshining went on in Putnam County, and they would take turns. The moonshiner getting caught, so the feds didn't come in here. It's your
I've
turn to
heard
get
that.
caught.
Yep.
So I can remember the old theater, House Theater. I went to first movie I ever saw in there was Born Free. I don't know.
Did you use RC Cola tabs to get in?
No, I was up past that. I was
Okay.
up. I mean, Mama would take me down there and pay, I don't know, 15 cents, 25 cents for me to go in, but it's like walking into a big cave.
Right.
When you walked in, the concession stand was back in here, and you walked in, and the theater went you walk in, and the theater went with St. John's Avenue. And so you'd sit in there. But Born Free was the first movie I ever saw. It's about a lioness and her cub.
I love it.
Born free.
I feel like
free as
that
a
has been on one of our watch lists recently. We would like to go watch old movies, new movies, or whatever.
Yeah, you'd probably like it.
Yeah.
And I don't mean that in a derogatory way, but you'd probably like it.
I don't even know if it is going to be derogatory. Are you calling me old?
No, I'm not calling you old. It's just kind of a hippie type of thing.
I accept that. I'll accept that. I've been called worse. I found about the Howell Theater. It was the interview with Tom Deputy where he was talking about that he had followed the PDN photographer at the time, and they had like pictures of the firemen putting out the Howell Theater.
That wasn't the Howell Theater. That was the new theater.
The new theater.
The new theater was in the 200 block, and I believe it's still there. If you go down there and sweep it out, there's where coming into the theater, there was black and white tiles where you walked into it, and if I'm not mistaken, they're still there.
So the Howell Theater closed down?
Yeah, the Howell Theater closed when the.
Oh, how do I have that confused?
Most people do. There's a lot of people that don't.
I've interviewed. I should know better.
Well, no. Oh. I mean, because there's a lot of people that would tell you that burnt down when it's actually the second. Because this whole block that we're sitting on here now, the 100 block,
right?
Better part of it burnt down at one time.
I do know that.
The what's the governmental, not HUD, deals with children. Anyhow, their building was over there, attached to where Welch office is now,
Mm-hmm.
and it burnt. One of my father's first offices, a CPA, was in that block when it burnt in that part. And actually, where we're sitting, was Monty Harriet's restaurant.
Mm-hmm.
It was a place that you would go to, like much like Bradley's or something, on a Friday night.
Mm-hmm.
I can remember we'd always go down on Friday night, and as a kid, we'd sit and eat, and I would eat. I always loved just cube steak, and mashed potatoes, and gravy.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and then on that corner where the River Center is, you had, I think it was a Chevrolet place. There was a car dealer right there at one
Mm-hmm.
time on the corner, but all that got tore down and moved into just a flat what's here now, basically. But the Howe Theater was where the Frank George Apartments was.
Right.
It was all bought. There was a parking lot out back and all that. The Masonic Lodge was upstairs and that thing. You had Go Rab's bar and hotel upstairs, apartments, I guess they were at that time. You know, but that was all tore down to make room because HUD had provided Palaca Housing Authority with money to buy or to build that 7 or 8 story Frank George apartment. And so that's what I can remember. I mean, I'm just old enough to remember going in and helping chip cement off of bricks to be reused for a penny a brick. That was big money.
Oh,
That was
man.
big money, you know.
Yeah. One penny,
Yeah.
2 pennies.
I think it was 1971 or 70. Might have been 69. It's somewhere in there they tore that down when they built the Azalea Plaza Shopping Center, which is now the governmental building.
Yeah, I was sure that my understanding was that the theater had burnt down.
No.
So, well, then scratch my story. Because, but was there a theater that burnt down?
Yeah, the new theater.
Yeah, okay. So there was, okay.
And the framing to it stayed up for a long time. I mean, there was just a hole in the wall there, you know, bricks and everything. And
well, then my story still stands that even though the place was wrong, that it was a theater and there were pictures that were of the firefighters trying to put out the fire, and you know, unfortunately, those have been lost to time, you know, and that's a bummer. But
well, and Tom might have been talking about, I don't know, I don't want to speak for Tom, but the fire that happened over here, HRS, that's what the building was over here.
Right.
They
now I do know he fought fires.
Right.
Yeah.
And that building, I mean, it took them a long time when it caught on fire. And actually, if I remember correctly, now I'm not a fireman or nothing, but people tell me stuff and it sticks up here for whatever reason.
That makes one of us.
I mean, I sat at my grandfather's knees listening to stories. People ask me how I know so much. It's because I sat at my grandfather's knees and listened. I didn't walk away. But that HRS building burnt, and that could be what Tom was talking about. But you know, I don't know why that whole block didn't go up in the second block, because if you would have saw that building that the new theater was in, with how it was burnt, you would have thought it burned up everything in there. But it stood there because on this corner, which is the parking lot for the Bingo Palace, was once the J.C. Penney building, and they moved from there across the street to the older building, which is now the Bingo Palace, and then out to 19.
Right.
But it was at Christmas time, that corner building was the J.C. Penney Christmas store.
Oh,
I'd go in there and just walk around for hours.
Oh, I bet. I bet that was beautiful too.
Well, the whole St. John's Avenue, I have so many memories of that. Especially at Christmas time, around the Thanksgiving Day parade or Christmas parade at Thanksgiving Day. Palaca Daily News used to had a magazine type thing they put out, and it had store advertisements in it. And every one of those store advertisements had a number that if your number matched with what was in the window, you won some kind of prize from it.
I want to bring that back. Yeah. I've heard about that numerous times.
Oh, it was awesome as kids, because our parents would stand in one place and we'd run up and down St. John's Avenue. I mean, literally.
Right.
From this end of the street all the way back up to Harrington's, which is the pool hall now.
Right.
Right in there. We'd run all, you know, Winn-Dixie was across the street, and what is the Island Doctors now?
Yep.
That was, I don't know if it was the first Winn-Dixie. It might have been Piggly Wiggly, and then it became Winn-Dixie. But I remember it as Winn-Dixie.
Right.
But we'd run that far and get back to our parents, not afraid of nothing.
Right.
You know? I mean, that's the beautiful thing about Palaca, where it's been and what it's done.
Absolutely.
We never worried about nothing.
No, I still, I have said many a times that I'd love to see, as we watch things revitalize, to bring back some of those things, such as the newspaper and the numbers in the store. Like, uh, I love the idea of thinking of that innocent time in the community. And I mean, honestly, now I feel safe walking at night on down here. For
Mm,
me personally,
mhm.
I think that, yeah, obviously, it was much different where all the stores were busy and filled and occupied, and even the upstairs had businesses too. Um, and I feel like we're getting back to that. We're seeing things that are developing, and I really have a lot of hope for it. But even with some of the vacant stores, I still feel like, where else can you go downtown and ride your skateboard? For me, up and down the blocks at 10 o'clock at night,
Mhm.
because that's totally what I should be doing at 10 o'clock at night with my family. But and still
But you're
feel
doing it with
safe.
your family.
Exactly. Yeah. And that way I can, like, something happens, I'll give them one of the kids. I'll, run off. Just kidding, kids. Just kidding. All everyone who is concerned about their safety. Somebody's gonna come for me for
Well,
that
you
one.
brought up another subject, and by talking about what you're talking about, and I mean, I'm running away from what you wanted to talk about, I think, but Palatka, downtown Palatka,
Hmm.
it's my heart.
Right.
I love Putnam County. All y'all out there that may be watching, I love you. I love people. Um, we just talked about that a while ago.
Yeah.
Sometimes I come in the afternoon and I tell my wife, I hate people, but I really don't. I love people. I love people. And I love my town. I love the fact that my two daughters went to school here.
Hmm.
Were raised when you went to school with Kelly,
Yep.
my oldest. So, were raised here. They love Putnam County. They love Palatka. They don't want to leave. They hate the fact that they can't go anywhere and somebody's, are you Ed Killebrew's daughter? They hate that, but not really. But they as coming up, they kind of, I'd know about things before they got home. And it's, I want to help Palatka grow, come back,
Yes.
and be what it was at one time. The the fact that this is what I've always wanted, that my daughters were raised here, could go to school here, and if they wanted to, they could find jobs and stay here. And both of them have
Right.
done that.
Right.
Both of them have done that. My oldest, the magnitude with which she has chased her profession, it's just crazy. Her heart's so big, and
Hmm.
she loves children. She's a teacher, and she's been teacher of the year. She was teacher of the year in
Right.
2020, I think it was. Um, she's just done magnitudes of things as the person she is.
Hmm.
She has a great big heart. Um, and I mean, bringing them through that, and the fact that they're still here. She's raised 3 children. My other one she's in the process of raising one. She's 3. I have 15, 12, 8, and 3-year-old granddaughters or grandchildren. Um, and the fact that I've seen that.
Right.
I mean
You didn't have to fly out somewhere
I
to
didn't.
go see a grandkid,
Mm,
or you could pick them up from school. Like, there are some grandparents who are, uh, I mean, obviously countries away, depending on if they're in the service, but that, have to take plan a day trip to go be with their grandkids.
right. Right, and so what I'm saying here is Wendy and I, when Hurricane Matthew came through in 2017, I think it was, I had to go out to Servpro in Fort Walton Beach. They brought me the equipment that I needed to rent from them,
Hmm.
but I had to take it back. And so we went out, and it happened to be our anniversary, November 17th. And so we just made
Are
a
you
week.
coming up on an anniversary?
Yeah,
Oh, happy early
35 years.
anniversary. Wow.
35 years. So, yeah, believe it or not, Wendy's I love you, baby. I don't know. She's put up with me for a long time.
Wha-
But anyhow, we went out there and we were coming back through. We decided to stop in Apalachicola.
Mhm.
63 years old, never been.
Apalachicola.
Yep. 63
I
years.
feel like I need to say bless you after you say that.
And you've never heard of Apalachicola?
Bless you. No.
Really? You,
No.
you need to take a trip. You and Dylan need to take a trip and go to Apalachicola. It's the neatest town. I mean, I guess after this storm, they're still there because I think everything to that side was okay. Um, but we came through there, and Apalachicola was much like Palatka. They were an oyster town. I mean, that's what they did. They oystered,
Right.
you know, and they say that the Appalachian River, all that coming down through there, brought pollutants from Georgia, and it killed the oysters out. So they kind of lost their identity.
Right.
And so we decided, we went in there, and they were building their identity back. I came back to Putnam County, and I started preaching.
Right.
I mean, I started preaching. They had a brewery in the middle of the town. How about that? They had a brewery in the middle of town.
Right.
And so people would come from Tallahassee. The college kids on the weekend, people just visiting from Tallahassee, vacationing, they would come to Apalachicola. The old men, such as myself, would sit in the middle of the town at the brewery, and they were allowed to sit outside on the sidewalk, drink a beer, and talk to people and stuff like that.
Right.
And their wives would go all over town, and they would art shops, art studios, shops for Columbia clothes and stuff like that.
Right.
And then they had some hotels up above, like it's being planned. You know, like with the old McCrory's building and the old Diana shop and the Hotel James, all that. They had some of those. I mean, the old buildings that they had converted. And one building was right down, used to be an oyster warehouse right down on the bay. They converted that into a bed and breakfast.
Oh, wow.
So they were starting to have a flow.
Yeah, yeah.
So I came back hollering that, and oh yes. And you know, preaching and everything like that. Then I start talking to people like Charlie Douglas, you know, Brett Sloan, people like that. You know, some people getting upset. Well, they're doing this and they're doing that. If they just let them do it.
Yep.
Come on, just let them do it, and
Absolutely.
Let's see. You know, I mean, they're investing money in our community.
Yep.
Lots of money.
Yeah.
And that's what needs to happen. And I appreciate that. You know,
yeah.
I mean, that's how our community is going to grow back.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, just coming back. You know, so. Got any other questions that I can run that rabbit on?
Oh, I can ask tons of questions. Yeah, I wouldn't disagree in the fact that it takes, I think what's so special about Palatka is that we do have a slower pace of life. We do have, you know, that, I don't know if it's antique feel is what I'm looking for, but it's like we haven't gone commercial. Like we do not get me wrong. If, you know, we had all these come in, I'd be happy about that. Yeah, I love that we have Publix, and I tolerate going to Walmart, but I appreciate what they provide to the community. You know, now we have a Wawa, you know, watch out. But I love that. I really love having the small businesses, the you know, small town, the merchants, the downtown merchants, and not just in Palatka, but you know, Crescent City, Hastings, Melrose. I love what they're doing out there.
Don't forget Interlochen.
And Interlochen, yeah, yeah, and I've been excited. I'll be venturing out there to be a judge on their trunk or treat. So
cool.
I'm very excited about that. Yeah, they've come a long way too.
Crescent City's getting a McDonald's.
Oh.
Yeah.
You know what? I heard that on the word of mouth pages. They keep me in the loop.
Well,
it's not always fact, but
it broke ground and the foundation was going up last time I was down there.
Oh, that's great.
A week or two ago.
No, I really appreciate that they had a Wendy's down there, because I would always hit up the Wendy's, and they have great Mexican food down there.
There used to be a restaurant. Where Johnson Overturf, where their place is now.
Yeah.
Place called Haps.
Haps.
And the people that ran the restaurant also had a funeral home.
Huh.
And that's what Steve Overturf and them, that's the place that they purchased, bought out. So
in the
Haps,
same building?
Yes. I mean, it kind of broke in half, you know, but it was always a joke. You know?
I don't even need to know the joke to know the joke, but I can imagine. You know, what's the special of the day today?
Heart.
Exactly.
Kidneys.
Yes. Filet.
Liver.
Anyway, back to why I was squirrels. I squirreled with you. But I think that some people are afraid of this becoming, not that there's anything wrong with St. Augustine.
Right.
But where it's not these revitalization of small businesses, because there are people who want to invest in the downtown and the small businesses, and restore what, you would never see a Walmart go pick out a historic building and re-outfit that. Yeah, maybe I've seen some CVS's in some interesting buildings, so maybe a CVS would do that. But outside of that, you're not going to get that small mom and pops feel from a big conglomeration. I think some people are afraid of that growth and afraid of that change it. And frankly, I already am aggravated at traffic at 5 o'clock.
Absolutely.
Between 2:30 and 5 o'clock. It is, and even probably beyond that. Like when I was a kid or even a teenager coming into town, like I never remembered that. And so seeing that growth, do I love the traffic? No, but I would much rather see the growth in the traffic, knowing that people are commuting within our community, and see that we have things on the horizon than to just try and sit on and not even do anything with what we have.
Stanley Hodge Sr.,
Mm-hmm.
when this lot here was vacant, he used to say, you talk about the traffic flows, because that's where I'm going with this. You're going to say, what's that about, Ed? But the traffic flow.
Mm-hmm.
He used to say, put a Ferris wheel right here. And when the kids come over with their, you're trying to catch people on the highway to bring them in. These people are passing through. That's what you want. You want these people to pass through, pay our taxes, our sales tax and our bed tax and all that, and keep on going. Really and truly, that's what we want. I hate to even say that, but that's what we want. But he said,
business is business. Yeah.
Yeah.
You gotta do what you gotta do.
He said, put a Ferris wheel right here on the spot. So when the cars would come over to the top of the bridge and the kids in the back seat, they're hitting mama and daddy, mama, Ferris wheel, let's stop. So those
it's like the candy at the checkout.
Yeah,
exactly. I get it.
So it's that type thing. We got to find something to catch, and that's the reason I went to Apalachicola a while ago, because we've got a brewery downtown. The powers that be, and I say powers that be, the people that are investing in our community are putting in restaurants, they're putting in stores and things to catch people's eyes.
Right.
I always said where Charlie's office is, Charlie Douglas's office on the corner of there is, that I always wanted to see something like a wings restaurant or something like that going there, for the simple fact, I'm a biker. Everybody knows I'm a biker. Motorcycles come through here, and they'd be stopped at that red light and look over there and, oh, look, let's stop and have wings.
Right.
Something out on the Reed Street to catch them and bring them down St. John's Avenue.
Absolutely.
But that's just my opinion. I just got a lowly little old opinion.
Oh my goodness. I think everybody has opinions, and everybody has a way that they think it should be done, or well, this is the most important, or my idea really has a lot of merit. But I think it's the sharing of these ideas. The podcast episode that just dropped, I say just dropped, depending on when this drops, but with Epicure,
right?
Your opinion matters. The work that you do matters. Maybe we don't get a Ferris wheel, but the thought is at least out there. The idea is at least out there. It's that networking and communication. And I bring up, for those of you who may not have watched that podcast, be sure you go back and check it out. But with Sunny, with Epicure, but Ed was the reason that Epicure made it here to Putnam County, and it was through that networking and sharing of thoughts and ideas.
Well, I have to give credit where credit belongs. My oldest daughter, Kelly, she came to me when she started teaching school. I didn't tell you that earlier. She came to me, she was teaching kindergarten. And they had told them she was teaching at Mellon, and they called that an inner city school, and said we had inner city kids. And I was like, what? Inner city? We don't have an inner city in Palatka. Well, we do, and you just don't realize it. But she brought me, she told me, she said, Daddy, she said, they told me not to let them oversupply them. They'll stick condiments in their pockets, you know, mustard, ketchup, something like that. So she called, I won't say called, but she saw a young man going to the line
Mm-hmm.
and was picking up ketchup and just stuffing his pockets full of ketchup. And when she went and stopped him, and he put the stuff back in there. He said, I understand, Miss McGahee. I'm not supposed to take all that home, but I was hoping to make tomato soup tonight. I don't have anything else in my home, and I was going to take this home and have my grandma make tomato soup for me. I was like, what? She said, yeah. So we got involved. I say we. It's my daughter Kelly, taking part of the on for her that doesn't belong to me. She started doing the backpack thing. They would send backpacks home with children on the weekends. And it's evolved. Denise has evolved it into Feed the Need.
Mm-hmm.
But we would collect. I was going to Grace Fellowship at the time, and we would collect food from them, and then, like I was telling you earlier, the going to St. Augustine getting food, I would take food from that, and we would get bread and everything like that and put it in the backpacks and what have you. So that evolved into me, you know, going and getting food, and doing with food, and then that evolved into me and Sonny meeting, and developing what has become, you know, what was Epicure, but developed it into what Epicure of Putnam County.
Right.
And people out there in Putnam County love Putnam County. The volunteers, I can't say enough thank you for what you did, what you are doing, what you have done. They just showed up.
Right.
Just out of the woodwork. We've had hundreds of volunteers out there on a Friday when the trucks would pull in. I mean, at that point, and everybody knows this, we had lines coming out of the warehouse all the way out on 17 down the Mill Road and everything like that. So, you know, that's how I got involved with, I mean, God has placed me in strategic places. I mean, I got to give all that credit to God. I mean, that's a conversation me and you had off camera earlier. I've got to give that my faith is high. My faith is whole. I'm a believer in Jesus Christ. I'm saved by His blood, and God has put me in places. I'm a little carpet cleaner. Okay, I'm a little country boy. I was born in Putnam Community Hospital over there, which is now a nursing home on Palm Avenue.
Yes, sir.
My mama took me home to 2512 Silver Lake Drive, which is a mile and a half away. And one day I would be buried right across the street from the hospital that I was born in. So I'm just a little country boy. I mean, that's all I am. I'm not nothing special. I got a mouth. I mean, we all know that, right?
I mean, I think that is what makes you special, though. I hear what you're saying. It's not like you know, created rocket science, or, you know, you didn't come from, you know, some big opportunity arena kind of thing, but you just homegrown
my
small
mom and
town
daddy
boy.
both were entrepreneurs.
Right.
My mom and daddy got a divorce when I was 7 years old. My daddy moved to Jacksonville. My mama stayed here. My mother owned A&P with my stepfather. They owned Jim Peters. They owned A&P Furniture, which is now a parking lot right across the street from the old First Federal. That little parking lot on the corner.
Okay.
That was where they started at, and it went out to Palm Avenue where Dave's Tops and Trims is now. That building was their furniture store. They taught me to work hard. I had others in my life. There's a lot of people out there that remember Billy Parkinson. He was my next door neighbor. He'd take me to the hay field every summer, and you know, I earned money. The county government building where Pantry Pride was at one time. I was 9, 10 years old. I don't know. There's probably a few out there that remember the Grit newspaper. It was a weekly newspaper that was mailed to me. And my grandmother had a bag, and my grandmother sewed me a money bag on the inside of it, and she would drop me out. I learned in the summer that on Thursdays, the meal workers' wives would bring the meal workers' check to Pantry Pride to buy groceries. My newspaper cost them a dime to buy it from me. And I would
Mm-hmm.
stand there and, I mean, within 2 or 3 hours, my grit newspaper would have been sold. Boom,
Oh my
gone.
gosh.
I pushed a lawnmower when I was a kid.
Right.
You know, my mom and dad expected me to do those type things,
You were born with the hustle.
yeah, and they taught me that. My daddy, one thing daddy instilled in me was you only get out of your community what you put in it.
Mm.
So, you know, that's what, I mean, that's the drive that I've had all my life.
Right.
You know, my grandmother, my grandmother used to tell me all the time, she says, you know what, even if you don't know how to do something, you're going to say you're going to know how to do it, and then learn how to do it before you get to it.
Right.
You know, I mean, I just, like I said, I don't want to brag on myself, but those are things, I mean, these people before me
Mm-hmm.
have brought me to this point, and I
Right.
want to be that person that brings others, yourself, others,
Right.
forward, and has a place for your children, my grandchildren,
Exactly.
to be at.
The whole, yeah, as we just celebrated 5 months being an official podcast, which it has been wild. Thank you. I'm not going to get emotional.
Yes, you are.
But no, and I'm usually pretty good in coaching somebody else from not being emotional. When we started, I lied, I might get emotional. When I started this project, with Charlie, it really was, you know, 6 or so years ago, us sitting around talking about how much we love Putnam County, how much we love Palatka,
Yes.
how much we believe in it, how much history is here, how many incredible people. You know, I would longboard, back to the longboarding, skateboarding down St. John's Avenue when the kids were off on the weekends, and stopping in at different businesses. And I didn't know what the business was. I didn't care. I'd come in, hey, what's going on? You know, I'd really like to know what you got going on here. Because I love people. And the more businesses I got into, the more I realized, like, if people understood someone's story, like why they are down there doing what they're doing. Like, I think about how long Sam Deputy, thank you to Deputy Zadok, who's a partner with us on the podcast, how much history is in that building, but why, and the curated goods that he has, and, you know, his passion for it. And you know, you're not just going in there to go antique shopping ever. You're going to go in there and get a wonderful story from somebody who's taken the time to talk to someone and knows about this item that they've bought. And if not, will be equally as curious about the item. So anyway, we would longboard down here. And that is when I realized, like, you know, I had this poor mindset of, you know, both my parents grew up in this community. I'm multi-generational. We always stayed around home, but at the moment I could get away from home, I wanted to go somewhere else to do some other activity, because there's nothing to do in Putnam County. Like, this is such a boring town. It's dying off. There's nothing to do. And then I realized that was a lie. Like, I just didn't know, because I didn't adventure. Like, there's so many hidden gems, and this county is big. So you can take a left down the road and end up, oh, there's a little coffee shop I didn't know existed, or a hole in the wall place. And so all I ever wanted to do was network and tell somebody, oh, hey, Ed, did you hear that you need a car part? Well, this guy down here specializes in that car part. Or, oh, you're looking for a bakery? Well, if you go in town, there's Baby Blue's Bakery that nobody knows exists back there. And that's a true story. I didn't know we had a bakery, and there's Baby Blue's Bakery. And so all I wanted to do was share that message and come to where we're at now. And when you look up Palatka or Putnam County, often, especially when I first started, there was a lot of negative highlights. Like, we're looking at a small fraction that every community has, right? Every community has their own challenges in their own areas that they need to work on or could invest more in. But it was only that conversation happening. And that wasn't the pride that I had in my community. My community is the community that when somebody's house burns down, that they get a whole refurnished place, that they have food, that they have refuge. My community is a community that, you know, if someone is in need of a hospital bed because for their son, because he's got a special need, that the community comes together to do that, that steps up to save Epicure. That's my community.
Mm-hmm.
My community is the one with the witches paddle out in Melrose, or the arts and farmers markets that are going on throughout the community, or the paint nights, or the Alhambra type movie theater, where I have three places where I can go to get quality performances and plays and musicals. That's my community. So we started this podcast just wanting to share things about Putnam County,
Mm-hmm.
share the stories of what was, and hopes to inspire what's coming next. To share the deep history, to share cool places like the Grand Gables Inn with the tunnel underground. Like, what? That's exciting to me. And I think it's about being able to share and inspire with others.
Exactly.
And
Inspire.
yes. And in the podcast, after 5 months, I never expected things to take off the way that they have. Like, I can film every day, 3 times a day, and only scratch the surface.
Right.
And I can talk. Like, there have been times my jaw hurts
Yeah.
after work because I've just been yapping so much. But it's those lessons that you learn from your grandparents and that you've instilled
Absolutely.
in your children, and those memories of how we accomplished that. I think
You talk about grandparents and telling stories to your children. My children and my daughters and son-in-laws look at me and go, "Dad, you've already told us that story 1,000 times."
that's me. I introduce my husband at least 3 times to everybody. I don't know why I do that, but anybody who's met him once has definitely met him officially 3 times.
Well,
So
what you're talking about, the buildings and the such and the things that, like where the Servpro building sits on Main Street.
mm-hmm.
Most people don't realize and don't know that at one time that was a grocery store. The foundation's still there. My building sits on the foundation of Setzer's grocery store. I can remember the train ran right down the middle of Main Street at one time.
I remember hearing that.
And then it became a storage spot for train cars. But the ice house was catacornered across the street from my building. And I can remember going down there with my grandmother did not have a driver's license, so my grandfather every Saturday would take her down there to shop.
Mm-hmm.
And the front door was kind of smushed away. It wasn't a corner; it was a flat door,
Mm-hmm.
and it was on the corner of 6th and Main Street.
Mm-hmm.
But it was, the door faced the corner; it didn't come to one side or the other. And the old men used to sit out there on the front benches and gossip. Is what they were doing.
Right.
I was all excited because the big African American man that was across the street that brought ice out on the deck, he'd bring a big old pot of ice out there and he'd throw it out there. I mean, it's huge, and he was huge.
Uh-huh.
And he'd throw it out there and he'd go to chipping ice off of it for people that needed it. They'd come up there and he was constantly, the whole time I'm there, and I was just amazed. I'd watch this man just throw ice.
Right.
And that was amazing to me.
Right.
You had, good gosh, Gertie, Fred Greenfield, which is there now. That one time, I don't know if anybody brought this up, but that was a coal yard, and it had a roundhouse in it. The trains would come up in there,
Yes.
and they'd do the roundhouse, they put the locomotives in there to work on them and stuff, and then they'd load them up with coal and things like that. I mean, so many things of it. And down at the end, down here at the river where the Holiday Inn, Checkerboard Square's feed store was there.
Mm-hmm.
The Nearings from San Mateo, one of my mama's dearest friends, Judy Nearing, Judy Burnett, her mom and daddy, I think they owned it, ran it. I'm pretty sure they owned it. But we'd go down there and chase rats through the feed store, But
Right.
And then they moved up to 11th and Main. There's an empty lot there at 11th and Madison now. That was at one time, that was where the African Americans went to. That was their theater,
Mm-hmm.
and then it became their feed store. I can remember going up top when they first moved in there. There was a poker room up top, and you got the cards and the chips were still scattered everywhere.
That's awesome.
So that there's just so much. I mean, we can sit here and talk, and I can bring it up. Just the things that I heard, just the things that I know, just the things that I've seen. You're talking about coming down through Palaca. As a child, I was about 9, 10 years old, maybe a little older than that when my mother and father owned the furniture store down here. So we lived out on Silver Lake Drive. A bunch of us get on our bicycles, come down Silver Lake Drive to the railroad track. There at River Street, Twig Street.
Right.
We take the railroad track across, and we'd come over the overpass, look at the cars and everything like that. Go on, keep on going, get on St. John's Avenue, and come downtown. Well, I'd get some money from my mother, and you had Moore's drugstore was right next door to her place. A little further down, which is the Mexican restaurant now,
Maria Chili's.
Maria Chili's, was City Drug.
Yep.
And we would go in there, either there or McCrory's. Ben Franklin was right on the corner. You get popcorn stuff there too.
Right.
But we would go in, most of the time it'd be City Drugs, get a hamburger, milkshake, french fries.
I remember going in there with my grandfather.
And then we went, we'd come across, and we'd go across the bridge on our bicycles and go into East Palatka and visit friends over there. As long as I was home by dark, or when my mama thought I needed to be home, it was fine. I mean, we didn't have no worries.
Right.
I mean, we didn't have this giant bridge out here. We had the old Memorial Bridge that was 2-lane. Used to love to watch the drawbridge go up and down when times we get caught over there.
I mean, I think when I hear you tell the stories, like, obviously you could tell that you love this community, and like, where we started with that was you being a small town boy, and so Servpro, how did that come about? Like, how did you decide to land that? You've been serving this community for how long?
Excuse me?
How long has Servpro been serving this community?
Servpro's been here since 1984.
Okay.
Wendy, my wife, and I bought it. We are 31 years into this business. I worked at the paper mill for 15 years. I came out of school. It was either going into the military or going to work at GP. I put an application at both. It just so happens that the Marines called me a day later than GP did. And
thank goodness.
Yeah. I mean, I wish now as an older man, I wish I'd have gone and served, but I needed to make money for my family.
Right.
And so I went to work at GP in August 11th, 1980. I was 23,895 was who I was. I wasn't Ed Killebrew. I was 23,895.
You, sir, do have a memory. I can't tell you what I had for breakfast yesterday, and you're telling me your employee number out at GP in your teens.
I was 19. I was 18, 19 years old, and I worked in the bag factory. I worked in, they still were making bags out there at the time. They hadn't moved. They moved the bag factory, but they hadn't moved it all.
Okay.
So then I worked in the bag factory. I worked on what they called the extra board, because when the bag factory shut down, I went back in and I had to work extra. I couldn't work. My department had moved. So when they had an opening somewhere, they would move me in. It was a day or two, what have you, like that. Then I wound up on the tissue paper machine. I worked with some great men on the tissue paper machine. I mean, great men. I mentioned Billy Parkinson. Billy Parkinson was my next door neighbor for 18 years.
Wow.
Helped raise me. And I went to work at the paper mill, and he became my supervisor.
Serendipitous.
Leon Conley, who was a city commissioner, he was a superintendent, assistant superintendent when I worked out there. Ronnie Kaysen, just so many, and all these people had connections to my mom. Really, literally, they graduated with her or something. I mean, they all had connections with mom, and but they don't know. And if you're listening to me now, let me help you. If you're a teenager, and which I doubt you're probably a teenager watching me, but coming up through life, be a leader, be somebody that somebody can look to and say, they told me this, because I had many men in my life that reached back and helped me up when I was an idiot. Okay, I mean, that's the only way to put it. I was an idiot. I did things, crazy things. I did so many things in my life that people were just ready to do away with me. But these men and women too, they would reach back and counsel me and pull me forward. That's another thing that's beautiful about our little town, because people will step in your way,
absolutely,
and say you are going down the wrong path. Now, I started, and I didn't tell you this, but I started doing prison ministry in 2006. it was motorcycle prison ministry. We went to a different, it's called Running Out of Time Ministries.
Mm-hmm.
We went to different prisons. One prison first Saturday of the month around the state. We would be out in Pensacola,
Oh, okay.
and down to the Keys. We went into them, and I went into these prisons, and I found out that when I went in, I'd always ask, how many of y'all from Putnam County? That's where I'm from, Palaca, Putnam County. And I'd bar none, 20 to 40 young men would raise their hands. And I say young men because they were between 18 and 24 years old, almost all of them. And they were almost all for some kind of drugs or something like that. And, but that helped me. That helped me with my relationship with God. That helped me with my relationship in the community. Because I had all these young men coming back. They come back to the county, or after they got out, it meant 2 or 3 years
looking for you.
Yeah. Oh, well, not necessarily that. I'd find them, and then we'd have a talk, and they'd say, Mr. Ed, if you hadn't have come, I wouldn't have thought about this. I'm going to tell you one more tale about that, and I'm going to leave that alone. We went out to Fort Walton CI, and it's way out in the Panhandle, and it was cold. I remember getting up the morning I got up to go into the prison. It just ice on the windshields. I mean, it's like 28, 27 degrees.
In Florida?
Yes, Northwest Florida, and the temperature wasn't rising. It was supposed to be cold all that day. I had good excuses not to go that week. Wendy was sick. And let me tell you this too, my wife is the wind underneath my wings. She is what's pushed me and moved me through my life. Okay, so she's another one that I can give credit to that. But we got up that morning, or that week. She was so sick they almost put her in the hospital for pneumonia. But she at the end of the week started feeling better, and I wasn't going to go. She said, "No, Ed, go. This is what you love,
right?
Everything like that, go." So everything that could get in my way that week got in my way. Got up the next morning, I trailered my motorcycle out there because I was so late going, and got up the next morning, went to push my motorcycle off and start it. It wouldn't start. So I started loading it back up on the trailer, and the guy said, "What are you doing?" And I'm like, "Well, don't start." So they helped me push it off. We got it in. Well, there was a purpose in that. There was a destiny in that, if you want to put it that way. I met a young man that morning out on the yard from Crescent City. He was in there for some drug charges, and he was going to be. He was a pretty bad man. He's a pretty bad guy, and he was again in his 20s, and he got to talk to him and everything that morning. I thought, well, that's reading them out here. Well, then that afternoon we had about 700-800 men on the yard, and I'm not talking about us. I'm talking about the prisoners.
Right.
And we circled up on the yard, held hands, sang Kumbaya, did our prayer thing. Did all that. Well, I was walking back to my motorcycle, and this guy was talking to me. He said, "So you're from Palaca?" And I said, "Yeah, I'm from Palaca." And and I walked up to my motorcycle, and if you know anything about motorcycles, your kickstand's on the left side, and the motorcycle leans to the left side. And
I don't, but I trust you.
Well, there was a young man. There was a young man on the left side of my motorcycle where I couldn't really see him. Sun was in my eyes, the shadows down, everything like that. And my motorcycle was had diamond cut jugs, diamond cut push rods, chromed out. I mean, everybody really wanted to look at my motorcycle. So I walked up and was talking. This guy said, "Palaca, blah blah blah." This kid stood up and said, "Mr. Ed?" I saw it, and I called his name. I knew him. And I looked at him and I said, "What are you doing?" He was one of my neighbors. And he told me what was going on, why he was there, blah, blah, blah. And there was a group of guys behind him that was, they explained his story and what was going on. I mean, this is a long story, but I know, but they explained his story and we went through that. And he told me, he says, "I don't have but about 4 months and I'll be out." I was like, okay. So we went on about our business. So the young man I met that morning, he came by, Rudy Gordon, who has the gym up here by Palaca Flooring and all that.
Yeah.
He went to him, was talking to him, and asked him if he knew me. And Rudy said, "Yeah," and he sent him to me. And he came back to me and he told me, he said, "Mr. Ed, I've come back to get my wife and my child, and I'm leaving Putnam County. He said, you told me to change people, places, and things. He said, I'm doing that. He said, I'm moving as far away as I can. I wanted to make a difference in my life. I was like, great. Thank you for coming to tell me. With this other young man, he also, one Sunday we came back from church. I told you we had spent time at church and at Family Worship Center. We'd come back, it was in the afternoon. We pulled up to the driveway. Wendy looked at me, my wife, she looked at me and she says, who's that in the swing on the porch? I was like, huh? Well, it was him. So he in turn told me that he was trying to make some changes in his life. And I hope you don't mind if I get a little religious with this, but
you're telling your story. Okay. That's what we're here for.
He told me he wanted to get into welding. So he came by the office one morning and he'd walked to town from Barden. He was just trying to make a difference. And he said, I'm going to go out to when the welding school was out at where Florida Furniture's offices were on Comfort Road.
Yes.
He had gone out there and tried to get in and everything. He told me, he said, hi, Mr. Ed, he said, they don't have a place. Everything's filled up, blah, blah, blah. And I said, well, let's pray about it. And we prayed about it. And, he went about his business trying to find a job and everything like that. He called me back about 3 hours later. He said, Mr. Ed, you're not going to believe this. I said, what is it, bud? He said, the welding school just called me. They had somebody drop out.
Oh, my gosh.
I got the position. Not only did I get the position in the school, but I got a full ride. My books, my welding aprons, my welding face mask, everything's going to be paid for. And so he got all that done, and now he's a productive citizen in the community. I'm not bragging on me.
No,
that's a God
you're
thing.
Just sharing.
It's a God thing. But that's, reaching back and helping people is very important. And we do that here.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's what happens here.
Yeah.
It's like Charlie Douglas. When he came back to town, I called him. I said, Charlie, thank you for coming home. He could have very well gone into Jacksonville and everywhere else and been very, very successful as he is now, but been very successful. But he made a conscious choice to come back to Pulaski.
Yep.
He's not going to like, if he watches this podcast, he's not going to like this next little thing, but it's okay. It's bragging on him. Y'all were probably in 6th, 7th grade when I went to him one day and I called him governor. And he looked at me and he says, why you calling me governor? I said, because one day you're going to be the governor. I can tell that. And he's very, very caring, very kind. Him and his family have done, I think I told you earlier, his grandfather, I called him Mr. D. He was my scoutmaster. His grandfather was involved in his grandmother's house. They were involved in this community.
I think it's something that is instilled in you, and you have to take pride in a community to instill that. And if you don't have pride in where you come from, and you don't know your heritage, and you don't know your history, how can you instill that in your children? How can you, if you're not volunteering and donating your time, instill that in your children? My kids may not understand. They may think they're having a good time when I drag them to come volunteer at a festival, or come, drag them in the trailer and help them, help me clean up around here, or, teach them how to run the equipment or whatever that is. They think, just tag along with mom's work. But as they get older, they recognize the importance to that. And so if your kids are still young, and not all of the episodes have big bangs and excitement. Sometimes we're just sitting down having a casual conversation about our community, and maybe the kids don't want to sit down and listen to that. There are things where I'm out adventuring, and I think that is enjoyable for our youth. But it is our job as parents to sit down and instill that in our children, and to give it to our community, and to volunteer. One of the things I've been sharing with people is how to support the channel, what we're doing here from home. people think, oh, I have to donate to make something, successful, or there's got to be a sign up or whatever that is. But just watching our channel and following and subscribing to the channel, right there in YouTube, or following the Facebook group, but definitely following the channel, allows me the opportunity to know what everybody wants and to do more of that, and to be able to bring more stories. Because, if we can be the voice of Putnam County, and we can write the narrative instead of letting other people write the narrative or writing the negative narrative, we can showcase what an amazing place this is.
Absolutely.
And one day, I would love for this to be a channel where there's a history repository where we could show this to the youth. Every day that we have someone pass away that we haven't sat down and done this right here, we lose a story.
Right.
We lose history.
I would encourage you, and I don't know if he'll ever do it, but Stanley Hodge, if you could get him on here, or I know you've had John and Chip, but if you get, I mean, that's such a rich pot to dip into.
I love him.
He's got stories, and it would be more of a comedian show than it would be.
I'm about it, yeah.
But it would be, the stories he tells about people and things like that. He tells a story about, and I'm not going to mention the people's names, but they were going down 207 when 207, they were headed to the beach, and they were going fishing, and they were been drinking, and they were a little inebriated, and the highway patrolman pulled up, and this is years ago, right somewhere around Cracker Swamp Road, and they had corn growing, and the driver got out of the car, and he put him up front, and he told him he said, well, after he got there, he said, you drunk? And he said, well, I don't know, I can't remember the exact words, but he made him walk the line. So he started walking the line, and the officer said, okay, that's far enough, but he started getting a little faster, a little faster, a little faster. Said, okay, that's far enough, I told you to stop. He took off running. And then he ran into the cornfield. Now, this is back before Motorola and all that,
right?
All the radios and stuff like that. He took off through the cornfield, and the officer didn't. So he went back to the guy in the car. The guy in the car got out, and he shut the door and started walking back towards East Black. He said, where are you going? I'm going to arrest you. He said, I wasn't driving. It's not my car. You're not going to do anything to me. And he just walked off and left the officer just standing there,
Oh, my gosh. Yeah, we have so many great stories, and so many interesting things that I would love to dig into. And every community has some color to it. Yeah, I may or may not have heard that there used to be a dancing club in San Mateo, that back behind a specific building there was a dancing club, and certain people came by every week to collect money to make sure that the dancing club could continue. It's just fun things like that. But really, it's just that we all have to do much like what you're doing, and much like many others in this community, to step up and support one another.
That's exactly right.
And partner, and to support our youth, and to share positivity, and continue serving this community. And I thank you for not only serving us at GP, but then choosing to invest and Servpro and all the things that you do, and what free time I'm not really sure that you have. Maybe when the kids are out of the house, I'll have more free time.
No, I took them along with me.
Well, my kids go everywhere.
That's one thing that I will say, that the service to community, my children have picked up on very well. They both serve the community. Kelly's just right down in the middle of the midst of things. She just cares. She cares about the community. She's great. My grandchildren, my youngest grandson, Waylon, talking about Epicure, he loves to go out there with me at Christmas time and Thanksgiving and distribute turkeys.
I love that.
Oh, he's all about that. He just loved. One year, and I think it was during COVID, we had a Santa Claus out there, and everybody, we couldn't get close to the cars, and I wasn't allowing him to pick up turkeys and getting close to the car, just because of his size.
Right.
But we had candy canes we were giving away, and he would walk up as the car would start to pull away. He'd say, "Excuse me, Merry Christmas," and he would hand him a candy cane.
Bless it. Yeah.
But he helps with the Kiwanis Club. We do Kiwanis Club at the Zaya City. We do the concession stand at the football game. he loves to fry French fries and take stuff, do whatever, pick up ice. You know,
Right.
he's got a servant's heart, and
Yeah.
he loves people.
Yeah. And I think giving them that opportunity to go out there and do that. I've sent Aaron over to Denise to help unload water,
Mm-hmm.
for the feed the need.
Mm-hmm.
My daughter often comes over here. They've all picked up trash with the pickers I've got over there. I think any level of support, like I said, whether it's liking a channel and helping them share the word, comment on the post, let us know what you enjoy, let us know what we could do more of, whether it is going to pass out candy canes, or fry French fries, or whether it's just taking care of the front of your your yard and one yard next to you.
Yes.
There's a place for all of us, but we really are, as a community, just incredibly blessed to have something so special that you don't find everywhere else. And I think that we could continue to grow this and see the revival of our community downtown, and see the growth continue if we all just come together and work together.
That's it. I call myself a conservative,
Mm-hmm.
but I guess I'm more moderate than I am anything, because I believe there's a middle we can meet in. I mean, we don't have to agree.
Right.
We can agree to disagree,
Right.
but we can we can do the things that are good for our community and move along.
Yep.
I mean, that's a political plug. I know that, but I'm not plugging
Right.
either or anything like
Right.
that. But we can come together as a community and make a difference.
Right.
Make a difference in our community, make a difference in our state. My pastor once told me, be a world changer. How can you be a world changer?
Right.
You're in Putnam County. There's
Right.
73,000 people in Putnam County. Our county seat's doing good to have 10,000 people in it. How can you be a world changer? Change the world you're in. Change the world you're in. If that be your wife and your children, let's put it this way. Let's put Putnam County on I just had it in my head. Amway.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't know if you remember Amway
Yes.
or not.
Yeah.
Okay,
Absolutely.
these two people, you share with this person, he shares with two people. You share
Right.
with this person, they share with two people.
Yep.
All the way around until you've changed your world.
Right.
You have made a difference in your world. If that's your house, then your block, then your neighborhood,
Yep.
then your city,
Yep.
then your county. Change the world you're in. That's being a world changer.
Absolutely.
You make things better for you. You make things better for your neighbor. You make things better for your kid. Sorry, I'm all about that.
No,
Yeah.
I'm for it. I'm excited
Well,
to.
that apology wasn't necessary for you as much as it was for the camera.
Oh
So,
no, if they're watching, they want to hear that, and I think it's important conversation to have. And I loved hearing the stories of how you got here and growing up here, and the inspiration that you've shared, and your own testimony with it. So let's say our viewers out there have made it all the way through our banter, our squirrels, our conversations.
Oh, look, there's a butterfly.
Exactly. And they are curious, what kind of things is Ed Killebrew involved in, and how can I get plugged into those? I always love, if y'all look below while you're hitting that like, subscribe, follow button, you could also check out the descriptions to further that support. So tell us what things that you are involved in.
I have been involved in the American Cancer Society. I was their vice president for I can't remember the exact title, but that was very important to me, as my stepfather had cancer most of my life. My brother just passed away with brain cancer about a year ago.
So sorry.
My mother-in-law passed away last year with cancer. My brother-in-law, who lives in St. Augustine, is now dealing with cancer. I have an uncle that's dealing with cancer. So that was very important to me. It has been very important to me. I've been part of that. I'm part of the Isaiah City, the Kiwanis of the Isaiah City, which we go out into. I mean, we support the Rhoda Heaver's Boys Ranch. We support Feed the Need. We support baby brain builders. We support the athletes at
Mm-hmm.
Palaca High School. We give a lot of money to that. We give uh, scholarships to probably, I don't know, I think we gave away 13 or 14 scholarships last year to the different high schools, our high school here. Epicure,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm very involved in that. Support it wholeheartedly. Again, people don't think there's people in this county hungry,
Mm-hmm.
and with the way the food prices are going up now today, it's unreal. I mean,
I feel that.
I have people, your age, my daughter, and all that. I didn't really think about that until one day I took my 3 grandchildren recently to the theater.
Mm-hmm.
I got them a meal. We went to the pizza place, got a meal, $100, dropped $100. Bought tickets, $55. Bought, popcorn, candy, and stuff for them.
Which is crazy how much popcorn.
$250 we spent that afternoon.
Another squirrel. Well, I'm gonna get off on that. We went to go see a movie this weekend. I took my daughter and her friend, and she was like, "Can I get a popcorn?" And it was dang $20 for a popcorn and a drink.
Yeah.
20. I said, "Girl, I can make popcorn at home and stuff it in my purse, and it'd be just as good."
Yeah.
That is outrageous. So yeah,
Yeah.
I can. I mean, just to feed a family of 6, now 5. My eldest moved out. Still hard to not say 6, but to feed a family of 5 and to feed them healthy food,
Right. Not nothing extravagant.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But
Sustainable food, what you about said.
Yes, sustainable food is out. It's hard. It is very hard to do that. Some days we just we think the kids think it's a luxury, I really want to have a pack of ramen, no, that's not going to give you any nutritional
Right.
value. So for them, it's a treat, but for some families, that is their staple. That is how they get through. But Epicure provides not just food, but sustainable and nutritional food. So
yeah, but with that being said, I mean, I talk to people from different backgrounds all
I'm
day,
sure.
every day. Talk to people that got money. I mean, lots of money, and then people that have nothing. That I'm trying to help them through, just get them off the sidewalk. And the people, and this is where I find myself being a moderate, being in the middle. Because, and I'm going to get political again for just a minute. The people that we have in office in Washington right now, and I'm talking about all of them, not just one party. I'm talking about all of them, so don't get mad and shut it off because I'm saying this. I'm talking about everybody. I don't know when the last time was they bought a loaf of bread. I don't know when the last time they bought a gallon of milk, or for that matter, peanut butter and jelly. I mean, and then I've talked to others that, when I say they bought, because they got people working for them that buy for them.
Right.
And I'm going to talk to people that have money that go out and buy their own stuff, that they reach down and they grab a steak. They don't think about it. They just put it in the basket. They reach down and grab a gallon of milk. They just put it in the basket. Reach down and buy a $4 loaf of bread. Just put it in the basket.
Right.
They don't think nothing about it. They don't think, they don't look at the prices. They don't, they don't understand. And when I say to them about Epicure and everything like that, well, then people need to get up off their rear ends and start making a living. I start talking to them about this. I said, when's the last time you bought a loaf of bread?
Right.
When's the last time you bought a gallon of milk?
Right.
And they say to me, well, I don't, and did you notice the price of it when you really? No, I just handed them my ATM card or my debit card and went on about my business. I said, exactly.
Right.
If you remember in history, Marie Antoinette, when the peasants were complaining about not having food, she yelled, let them eat cake. And where'd that cost her? Her head.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where I'm at with these things. These people that are up higher in power, money wise, stuff like that, and you can get mad at me if you want to. It's true. They don't care to a point. They don't care.
Right.
I mean, and so that's another political statement. But anyhow, back to where, my daddy, again, he had me involved in Sertomas is a service group in Jacksonville, and he had me involved in that. And we'd go out, and one of their fundraisers was selling fertilizer. And
Hmm.
we load the back of his truck up with bags of fertilizer and go out and work all day long and, you know, delivering. I mean, so I mean, to say what I'm involved in, I can't think of everything. I
Well,
mean, and that's not a brag. I
no,
just,
no, no. I get that. You know, I think that sometimes you can, and being part of a community, you cannot recognize what all you have your hand in helping. Or, you know, one day you may be volunteering with putting on an event for down at the riverfront, and the next thing you may be volunteering your knowledge to someone else to help them put on an event, or to connect with a resource. So there are lots of ways to get involved, but I'll be sure to leave links to all the ways that you talked about if
well,
people are
I'm chairman
interested.
of the board of the City of Palaca Planning Board.
Hmm.
I'm just recently appointed to the Fair Board. Um, my wife looked at me and said, "When are you gonna find time to do that?" We will.
Right.
You know, we will. I mean, she gets a little aggravated with me sometimes because I do go overboard, but you know, I just can't. It's not that I can't say no. It's just I want us to keep serving. I
Right.
want to do things to help the people around me.
Well, we are so thankful that you do. And you do it with such a great spirit. I love every time I see you, just run into you now, I'm going to get a big smile, and you're always going to be a positive, you know, a positive light, and sharing your love with everyone else. And so we are a better community with Ed Killebrew and the great children that you've created and your lovely wife. You know, I hope that one day I will get the opportunity to see my kids be just the same as your kids have turned out, and watch them serve the community based on the inspiration that I hope that I instilled in them.
It's an awesome feeling when somebody comes and your children are around you. It's an awesome feeling for them to say, "Will you?" And before you can, your children are saying, "I'll take care of it."
Mm,
You know,
I
I'll do
bet.
it. I'll do that.
Right.
Yeah. So
I love that.
it's an awesome feeling. Um, and again, it's just what we were created for, to serve each other. Yeah,
Yeah.
it really is.
Well, speaking of serve, before we wrap this up and put all the butterflies back in the box,
Can to be put back.
I don't think so. No, I mean, not for me at least. Why don't you take a moment to tell the viewers who don't know who Servpro is,
Okay.
what they do,
Okay.
so they can give you a call if they need more. And though he does a lot of things, let's talk about what he's wearing today.
Servpro is a fire and water restoration mold mitigation company. We go if you have a hot water heater rupture in your house, pipe break in your home, anything. I mean, when you say flood, it's not just water coming from the outside in; it's water coming from the inside out.
Right.
You know, we come in and the flood part of it, we come in, extract the water out, put blowers in, dehumidifiers. It's a science. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, most people don't realize that. Oh, we can just do that. We can go buy some box fans, stuff like that. Well, you can do that, but you're going to have mold and mildew, and then you're going to call me because you have mold and mildew in your home. But we
Call me
come in,
now or call me later. You
yeah, you
pick.
come in and extract water, and then you put dehumidifiers in the home. You put the blowers in. I mean, a lot of times it looks like a bouncy house when you're underneath the carpet because you put the blowers and it kind of moves. And usually in 3 to 4 days, you dry it out. You know, everything's dried back. And then
Right.
we do the putting back together, the restoration part of it. If you have a fire in your home, we come in and take care of, you know, cleaning up and restoring your home to what it like it never even happened. That's our motto.
Wow.
You know, and then with the mold restoration, we're getting a lot of mold calls lately, but
Huh.
we do that.
That
And
Florida
then
heat and humidity.
yeah, on all the rain we've
Mm-hmm.
had and everything. Um, and then we also do the more simple things: carpet cleaning, um, upholstery cleaning, tile and grout cleaning.
So if I
Yeah,
called you, I have this giant rug in my living room. You guys could take care of that?
yeah. You talking about an area type rug?
Yeah.
Yeah, oh yeah. We'll come roll it up, take it back to the warehouse, clean
Huh.
it,
I was just wondering about that.
hang it up, and dry it, and bring it back to you. So yeah, we do all that.
I'll be calling you
Our
for
office is
that.
at 608 Main Street here in Palaca, Florida.
You guys have a website and a Facebook page,
Yes,
right?
we do.
Yep.
I
And
have all
those will
that.
be down below for us
So,
to
I'll-
click on.
we do all that.
Maybe
You know,
I'll sample the Servpro and I'll do a comparison of before and after of my six people, two dogs, both of them love to dig rug I'm spot cleaning all the time, but I just told my husband the other day, I was like, I'm either going to buy a new rug or I'm going to figure out how to clean it. And I don't know what I'm doing.
like it never even happened.
Yeah, never even happened.
That's our motto.
I
Like it
like it.
never even
Well, we'll
happened.
find out. We'll find
Okay.
out.
Well,
Well, thank you for sharing your
thank you
story
for
with
having
me.
me.
Oh, it's my pleasure. And if you guys enjoyed this, please be sure to share. Make sure all of Ed's friends that were mentioned in here, help tag them in this video.
Most of
Yeah.
them don't have a tag. They don't even know how to operate a phone. So the
Okay.
ones I was saying that they've helped me along.
Well,
They're
then you
older than
can
me.
go visit them and show them.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah. That.
John and Stanley Hodge always get tickled at me when I did a picture and put it on Facebook without them knowing. And they, how many likes I got now, Ed? How many likes? Yeah.
I love that. Well, I'm sure that this video is going to be very valuable to so many people. It's definitely valuable to me, and I hope again this inspires you in your own life to step up to the plate and be part of the unity and community. And I look forward to the success because you've got lots of other things you could come on here and share with us. So we'll be doing this again.
What?
And I'm not threatening you with a good time. It's a promise. All right. Thank you so much for joining me. I
Thank you for having
appreciate
me.
it. Absolutely. And we will see you guys on the next episode.